Assalamu alaikum. Today we are going to discuss two related topics that are fulminant hepatic failure and hepatic encephalopathy. My name is Dr. Aftab Anwar and I am Assistant Professor of Pediatric Gastroenterology. Fulminant hepatic failure is defined chemically as evidence of acute liver injury, the duration of which is less than 8 weeks, hepatic based coagulopathy, which is PT of more than 15 seconds or INR of more than 1.5 in absence of encephalopathy, or PT of more than 20 seconds or INR of more than 2 irrespective of encephalopathy. There should be no evidence of prior chronic liver disease if we have to label the patient as having fulminant hepatic failure. Of common hepatotropic viruses that are hepatitis A, acute hepatitis B, hepatitis D and E, or as a consequence of autoimmune hepatitis, hepatotoxic drugs, various genetic metabolic disorders in children such as Wilson disease, galactosemia, tyrosinemia, or hereditary fructose intolerance. Sometimes, despite all the investigation, we are unable to ascertain any specific cause of hepatic failure. In that cases, we label the patient as having idiopathic fulminant hepatic failure. Now, some words about the pathogenesis of fulminant hepatic failure. Any inciting agent which leads to massive hepatic necrosis, either due to direct cytotoxic effect or an autoimmune response to the agent, leads to fulminant hepatic failure. There is severe functional impairment of hepatocytes and liver is not able to perform its metabolic, toxic and other functions. Hence, hepatic encephalopathy results and eventually the patient is labeled as having fulminant hepatic failure. Common clinical features of fulminant hepatic failure are rapidly deepening jaundice, evidence of coagulopathy in the form of petechiae bruising, hematemesis or melena. There may be hepatic encephalopathy. We will discuss this a few minutes later. Evidence of fluid in the abdomen, which is called as ascites. Now, for diagnosis, apart from diagnosis of the cause, general investigations are needed, which include LFTs, which may show raised bilirubin in the range of 50 to 20 milligram per deciliter. Serum has high AST and ALT, usually in the range of thousands. There may be low serum albumin, hypoglycemia, as discussed previously, prolonged PT and INR, and high levels of ammonia. If the cause of fulminant hepatic failure is not known, management is usually supportive. There is no treatment available to reverse hepatocyte injury or to improve hepatic regeneration. Oxygen and mechanical ventilation are given if needed. Electrolyte and glucose solution should be given intravenously to maintain glucose level, urine output, and to maintain normal serum electrolytes, especially potassium. If the cause is known, specific treatment against it can be started, such as N-acetylcysteine for paracetamol poisoning, acyclovir for herpes virus infection, similarly lamivudine for HPV infection, or prednisolone for autoimmune hepatitis. Plasmapheresis and hemodialysis may help stabilize a patient while awaiting liver transplantation. While liver transplantation is life saving and final treatment of any cause of fulminant hepatic failure. The prognosis of condition depends upon the cause of hepatic failure and depth of coma. It is usually poor when the liver necrosis is marked and there is multi-organ failure. Now we will discuss hepatic encephalopathy in detail. Hepatic encephalopathy is a state of disordered CNS function resulting from failure of liver to detoxify toxic agents which are produced as a result of hepatic insufficiency and portosystemic shunts. The acute causes are usually fulminant hepatic failure, and any kind of cirrhosis due to chronic liver disease can lead to hepatic encephalopathy. Similar to previous discussion, the common etiological agents are infections which include hepatitis A virus, hepatitis B virus, non-A to G viruses, herpes virus, echovirus, adenovirus, and among bacteria, gram-negative sepsis is common. The hepatotoxic drugs such as paracetamol, valproate sodium, carbamazepine, isoniazid, and halothane can lead to hepatic encephalopathy. Metabolic causes are Wilson disease, galactosemia, autoimmune hepatitis, and malignancies and various toxins can also lead to hepatic encephalopathy. Now some slides are about the pathogenesis of hepatic encephalopathy. Normally, ammonia is formed in the gut as a result of protein breakdown, and normal function of liver is to detoxify that ammonia. When there is hepatic failure, the liver is unable to process excess of ammonia which passes the blood-brain barrier and results in hepatic encephalopathy. Other factors apart from ammonia are increased sensitivity to glutamine and GABA, and there are increased circulating levels of endogenous benzodiazepines. In acute fulminant hepatic failure, there is normally increase in blood level of ammonia, which has a toxic effect on brain when it crosses the blood-brain barrier. However, in chronic liver disease cases, there is appearance of abnormal amines in systemic circulation, which interfere with normal neurotransmission and lead to hepatic encephalopathy. So the basic cause is same in both acute and chronic forms, but the mechanism is somewhat different. Main neurotoxins involved in hepatic encephalopathy are ammonia, glutamine, short chain fatty acids, various amino acids, mercaptans, octapine, and GABA aminobutyric acid, which is called as GABA. The precipitating factors which can lead to hepatic encephalopathy in a patient of chronic liver disease are constipation, GI bleed, azotemia, and excess dietary protein and fats which lead to increased nitrogen load and increased production of ammonia. Similarly, hypokalemia, alkalosis, hypoxia, and hyponatremia leads to electrolyte and metabolic imbalance, which serves as precipitating factor of hepatic encephalopathy. Drugs such as diuretics and narcotics and any trauma or surgery of a patient with CLD can lead to hepatic encephalopathy. The common clinical features of hepatic encephalopathy are changes in personality, emotion, and consciousness, which are the presenting features. The patient may have inability to concentrate, he may be confused, disoriented, or drowsy. There is slurring of speech, and eventually all these conditions can culminate into deep coma. On physical examination, there may be petechiae, bruising, hematemesis, or melena, which are an direct evidence to coagulopathy. As a cause of liver failure, there may be jaundice or abdominal distension due to ascites in the peritoneum. The common signs are fetor hepaticus, which is a peculiar odor coming from a patient of CLD. There may be asterixis. I will show you the video of asterixis. CNS examination may show hyperreflexia, bilateral extensor plantars. The patient is unable to perform simple arithmetic tasks. There may be stigmata of CLD, which are clubbing, palmar erythema, or spider nevi. Examination of abdomen may show hepatosplenomegaly or ascites. Hepatic encephalopathy usually evolves over days through definable stages, which are stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and stage 4. In stage 1, the patient has mild confusion, agitation, irritability, alteration of sleep pattern. He usually sleeps during the day while awake during the night, and there may be decreased attention. If EEG is performed at this stage, it is usually normal. In stage 2, the patient may be lethargic, disoriented, having inappropriate behavior, and increased drowsiness. EEG will show generalized slowing and sometimes Q waves, which are diagnostic of stage 2 hepatic encephalopathy. In stage 3, the patient becomes aggressive. He is somnolent but arousable, having slurred speech and confused. EEG shows marked abnormal waves and a triphasic pattern, which is peculiar of encephalopathy. Stage 4 is patient has deep coma, while EEG shows electrocortical silence, bilateral slowing of waves, or there may be D waves present. Now I will show you a video of asterixis. When the patient is asked to extend his arms and extend his fingers, he is unable to maintain them. So let's watch. can see if the patient is asked to extend his arms and keep the hands in extended position, he is unable to do that. These are flapping tremors, which are also called as hysterexis. Similarly, this slide is showing constructional apraxia of 3 patients. The patients are unable to copy common 3G structures, as you can see. This is due to the brain dysfunction due to increased ammonia. Now, let's come to diagnosis. Diagnosis of hepatic encephalopathy is usually clinical. Routine labs are sent. CBC with platelets. In this, the TLC may be raised due to infection or decreased due to aplasia. Platelets may be decreased due to consumption or reduced production. LFTs might show marked conjugated hyperbilirubinemia. ALT and AST may be high in the range of thousands. RFTs to rule out hepatorenal syndrome. PT and albumin, which are the synthetic function of liver. PT is usually raised while albumin is low. And serum electrolytes. Ultrasound abdomen is done to see the liver parenchyma, liver size, whether it is increased or decreased, any evidence of cirrhosis or presence of fluid in the abdomen. Plasma ammonia is usually raised 2 to 8 times raised than normal is usually significant in hepatic encephalopathy. EEG is done to determine the stages of encephalopathy. We have discussed it previously. And specific labs to diagnose the cause of liver failure, which may include viral markers, autoimmune panel, serum ceruloplasmin, and urinary copper. Viral markers for common hepatotropic viruses, autoimmune panel for autoimmune hepatitis, serum ceruloplasmin and urinary copper are done for diagnosis of Wilson disease. The common differential diagnosis which can present with a similar condition as hepatic encephalopathy are any drug intoxication, Wernicke's encephalopathy, subdural hematoma, and hypoglycemia. Management of hepatic encephalopathy is supportive and specific, which is aimed at decreasing the ammonia production in the colon, and treatment or elimination of precipitating factor which has led to hepatic encephalopathy. The general measures are: the patient is admitted in intensive care unit, 2 IV lines should be maintained, supplemental oxygen is given, vitals are monitored on hourly basis, angioTube might be passed to see any evidence of hematemesis or GI bleed. Patient is catheterized for urine output record and IV fluids are given. Specific management consists of all these parameters. We will discuss them individually. Hypoglycemia may lead to CNS impairment and various vital organ dysfunction. So it is frequently monitored, usually on hourly basis, and IV dextrose is given. The concentration may vary from 10 to 50% dextrose as per need of the patient. Profound refractory hypoglycemia carries a grave prognosis and may lead to death of the patient. Profound disturbances in hemostasis develop secondary to failure of hepatic synthesis of clotting factors. Prolonged PT time is the most sensitive measure of hepatic synthesis of clotting factors. Coagulopathy should be corrected with fresh frozen plasma, cryoprecipitate, and platelets as needed. Vitamin K is given to activate the hepatic synthesis of clotting factors. Stomach and gastrointestinal tract is a common site of hemorrhage. For prevention of GI hemorrhage, ranitidine and proton pump inhibitors are usually given to the patient. Brain death associated with cerebral edema is the most frequent cause of death in fulminant hepatic failure. It is managed by fluid restriction up to 75% of the normal maintenance requirement. IV infusion of mannitol, which controls increase in intracranial pressure, and elective hyperventilation, which helps in washing out carbon dioxide and hence reducing the intracranial pressure. Electrolyte and acid base disturbances. Disturbances in sodium homeostasis are observed in almost all the patients of hepatic encephalopathy. Hyponatremia is more common. A total sodium intake is reduced to 0.5 to 1 millimole per kg per day. Similarly, hypocalcemia and hypomagnesemia are corrected, and acid-base disturbances are also common, which might lead to secondary liver failure, sepsis, or underlying disease, and they are managed accordingly. Renal insufficiency may be present in up to 75% of patients with hepatic encephalopathy. It is due to pre-renal uremia, acute tubular necrosis, and functional renal failure. Hepatorenal syndrome is common in patients with hepatic encephalopathy and is characterized by low urine output, azotemia, and low urinary sodium. The aim of management is to maintain normal circulatory volume to prevent hypovolemia and ensure a urine output of more than 0.5 ml per kg per hour in patient with hepatic encephalopathy. Alternatively, furosemide may be given to increase urine output, and eventually, if the two measures fail, hemodialysis is the option. Ascites occurs due to excessive peritoneal fluid in most patients due to portal hypertension, vasodilation, poor vascular integrity, and reduced oncotic pressure. It is managed by given spironolactone, albumin infusions, and general fluid management. Secondary infections are common in patients with liver failure. These are due to impairment of cellular and humoral immune systems in patients with liver disease. They are managed by giving broad spectrum antibiotics which are adjusted according to the blood cultures of the patient. Apart from all these pharmacological treatment, dietary management is an important aspect of management of hepatic encephalopathy. It is aimed at reduction of ammonia production and is done by restricting the dietary protein to 0.5 to 1 gram per kg per day. Enteral antibiotics to decrease the ammonia producing bacteria. It consists of neomycin and rifaximin, and finally enteric lactulose, which leads to acidic medium of colon, and therapy reduces the ammonia producing bacteria in the gut. Liver transplantation is indicated in all children who develop stage 3 or stage 4 hepatic encephalopathy or hepatic coma. It is also indicated in all forms of fulminant hepatic failure such as viral hepatitis, drug overdose or Wilson disease, etc. The only major contraindication for liver transplantation is irreversible brain damage. The prognosis of hepatic encephalopathy depends upon the cause of hepatic failure and staging of hepatic encephalopathy. Acute hepatic encephalopathy may be treatable when the cause is reversible, while chronic liver conditions keep getting worse with time and the patient continue to come back again and again. Stage 4 hepatic encephalopathy has the worst diagnosis. Thank you very much for patient listening. I hope you enjoyed the lecture.